in their headsets. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEO of Logitech, Bracken Darrell. Thank you. Welcome.
Is there a clicker? A mysterious clicker?
There should be a mysterious clicker. Here it is. Sorry.
Okay.
See, we had to hide it because it's not a Logitech.
It's not beautiful and it's not, yes. No, it's kind of beautiful, depending on how you look at it. Well, first, it's great to be here, and I want to thank all of you for being patient enough to sit here and listen for the next 30 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever it takes. I'm going to talk a little bit about design, but how many people here are from Switzerland? Great. So I'm not. That might surprise you, but I fell in love with Switzerland about. I guess it was about 10 years ago. I had been to Switzerland before, but I moved to Lugano. And I had the amazing experience of spending 4 great years of my life in Lugano. And I, of course, was traveling around Switzerland at the same time. And it was an amazing experience. And I love so many things about Switzerland that I won't go into now. But when I was fortunate enough I was not working for Logitech at the time, when I was fortunate enough that Logitech came and was looking for somebody to come in to work in the company. I sort of felt like I not only found Switzerland again in a company that's global, but I really have a chance to feel like I'm part of Switzerland all the time. So you'll understand that more in a little bit. But I'm going to talk a little bit about design. And design is a very, very oft discussed topic these days. And so some of what I say may sound a little familiar, but I'll try to give you a perspective on, at least why I think design is absolutely central to what everybody's doing, including whatever you're doing. How many people here have a startup or are working in a startup? Okay. How many people are working in a bigger company? Okay. Okay, so how many people are working in a big company? Okay. This will be interesting. Okay, so by the way, that product I'll be selling throughout this presentation. Thank you for selling our gaming headsets. This is an amazing product. This is a brand new product called Craft, which is a keyboard that has what looks like a watch dial on it, a crown, and that crown actually does some really cool things. It works directly inside of Adobe Photoshop or inside of Microsoft Office. You can change font sizes with it. You can saturate an image with it. You can expand an image or shrink it. So it's a new way to use a keyboard. It's an example of good design. Now, I am quite familiar, I have to say, much more familiar with startups than most people would realize, because I've never worked in one. I've never worked in a startup. Most people would say I've never worked in a small company. I shouldn't know very much about small companies, but I do, because in the last 5 years, I've probably met with, this is an understatement, probably at least 1,000 entrepreneurs with their own businesses, almost all of them with hardware businesses, so products, physical products, but also physical products that go all the way up to machine learning and lots of other software things. I've learned so much from startups, much more than I ever did from big companies. And now I spend almost all my time with startups, for a lot of reasons I'll explain over the presentation. One of the things I love about good startups is that they're super close to their customer. And they're almost always very hungry, and they're very fast relative to larger companies. They always need money. This is one of the things that makes them so fast. And they're pretty focused on innovating. They often change direction, which is great. And that's part of what good design is all about. Now, I'm going to tell a little bit about our story, some of which you know, but it's not necessarily a story for startups, but there's a lesson in it for everybody. So the company, I asked them to bring this whiteboard. This may or may not work. So if you can't see it, I apologize. And my handwriting, my drawing skills are outstanding, though, as you will see. So when the company was started, how many people have heard of Daniel Darrell? Okay, not enough. In 1981, Daniel Darrell actually and several other a few other Swiss people and a couple of Italians started this company called Logitech. And we started it on the back of this amazing device that was pretty new, which was the personal computer. And it took about a year, but after starting, like many startups, in one direction and moving into another one, we started actually as a software company, and we kind of stumbled around for about a year trying different things, trying to create a spreadsheet program. And we found after about a year, or they found, the mouse. And companies in Silicon Valley especially needed someone to create the mouse, to manufacture mice. So we started out manufacturing mice for the PC. And in about 1987, I'll give you a little history here, 1986, 87, we were still making mice, but we had not yet the Logitech brand had never been used on a mouse. We were selling them to Dell or Sun Microsystems or Apple, and they were putting their name on the product, and they were putting them in the box. And so about 1987, you'll appreciate this if your English isn't it as good as your German or French or Italian or whatever language you primarily speak. About 1987, Daniel Darrell, one of the founders, and Pierluigi Zappacosta, another one, were flying to meet with Dell, which was a relatively new but already big PC maker. They booked their flight to go to Houston, Texas. They landed in Houston. At the time, we didn't have smartphones or GPS because it was 1987, and they immediately pulled out the map with their rent-a-car to drive to Dell's headquarters there in Houston, and they realized that there was no road with in the Houston area where Dell was supposed to be, and they quickly discovered after a phone call to the headquarters that Houston and Austin, Texas, are two different cities. Now they probably sounded the same, but Houston and Austin are very far apart. So they took that rental car and they drove from Houston to Austin, and eventually did see Dell. But in the drive there, they made a big decision, which was to launch the Logitech brand into the retail market. And that was the beginning of what Logitech was. For many years, we continued to make mice for most other people. About 1998, another big thing happened. And we were still growing this way. But in 1998, we made a big decision. And most startups won't get to this decision for maybe at least 5 or 10 years, which is, we decided to enter a new category. Not only were we going to do mice, but we were going to make the brave move of making keyboards. Now, why was that such a tough move? Because as you know, if you have your own startup, you're in a startup, or if you're in a company like Ian and I are, or many of you are, focus is what it's all about. So if you don't focus, you don't get anywhere. But at some point, when you're a company of any size, your primary business starts to run out of steam, and the only way to grow is to get into new things. The reason why it was a tough call to go into the keyboard was because we had a manufacturing plant that made those mice. So we were competitive. We were very good. We never manufactured these, and we didn't actually for many, many years. So it was a big risk. So we put our brand on it. We worked with another company to create it, and before you know it, we were in that category. From that point on, from 1998 till 2008, we had an amazing, and I do mean amazing, run. From 1990, for this 10 years, Guarino De Luca, another Italian who had worked at Apple, came in to run the company at this point, and he led a move not only into keyboards, but also into PC speakers, into webcams, into headsets. So we surrounded the PC, as you know it today, and we even got into gaming products. So we surrounded the PC, and we had this magical formula. And the magical formula, which I've had the good fortune of seeing many times in my career, is this. You have 3 ways to grow. Number 1, you can grow with the platform or the market. So this is the best way to grow. If the market's growing and you're pretty good at what you do, you will grow. And by the way, high growth markets are particularly good for a while anyway. The second way to grow is to innovate and gain market share. This is obvious. The word market share was invented by Nielsen, and now Nielsen is I think a $13 billion business, all built on this idea that market share really matters, because it does. It's the most important way to grow in a way. And the third way to grow is this one, which is to enter the new keyboard space or the new PC speakers or webcams or headsets. So the third one is to enter new markets, adjacencies. 3 ways to grow. Remember that, because if you could find 3 ways to grow in whatever business you're in, over time, don't try to do it up front, it's amazing. Now, and as of 1998, something happened. Sorry, 2008. By the way, that 1998, 2008, 10 consecutive years, 39 consecutive quarters of double-digit top line and double-digit bottom line growth. If that doesn't sound impressive to you, I will tell you that no other company, I think, ever in a publicly traded stock exchange has ever done it. So Logitech's the only company that's done it. So 39, almost 40, consecutive quarters of double-digit top line, double-digit bottom line growth. Extraordinary. But all good things tend to come to an end. In 2008, something big happened, which was that PC thing stopped growing. The tablets came out. Steve Jobs had the nerve to put an iPad out there. And when he put that iPad out there, the platform stopped. And unfortunately, we were pretty dependent on that formula. We were a little late to get into things that might be you could probably use with an iPad. In fact, Steve Jobs himself did not believe that a keyboard was even relevant to an iPad. He thought this was all you'd need. And so we then spent the next 4 years trying to find our way. We tried lots of things. We tried full-scale video conferencing systems. We tried to partner with Google in a really cool thing called Google TV, which was a very good idea. Unfortunately, they didn't work, and we weren't very good at trying new things yet. You have to learn that. So we stumbled around for a while, and that's kind of where I came in. So I came in right here. I had the good fortune. Logitech's bad fortune was my good fortune, because that's when they found me, because they were looking for somebody who would at least try something different. And so now I'll talk about what we did. So first of all, I'm gonna set the stage for the results. In my first year on the job, how many people are in their first year on the job? Anybody? A new job? No? Okay. Well, my first year on the job was not good. It was really bad, actually. Our revenues declined. Our profit was at a terrible low. And our stock price, and if you're a publicly traded CEO, this is an important number. Our stock price was between $6 and $7. So you could buy the company. You could have bought the company for about $1 billion. So that was really my starting point. Now, I loved it, because there's nothing better than coming in when you're in trouble. So when I came in, I was looking for the alternative. This was the platform that had grown for years, and I came because I love design, and I wanted to create a design company. Now, what do I mean by design company? A design company to me was a company that would put the user in the middle of things, build products around them, and be able to do that in more and more different categories and places. That's what I wanted. I had run Braun globally in Germany for about 4 years, and I fell in love with design, and I fell in love with the idea of innovating into new categories. So when I came in, I was trying to figure out, what is the new platform? If it's not the PC, and it clearly wasn't, what is it? It's the cloud. Okay, so this was the new platform. It took us a little while to figure that out, but the cloud was our new platform. Why the cloud? Because in the cloud, you had new services, and those services need to be delivered by something. You need to, at the end of the day, we have our 5 senses, and you tend to need to touch and feel and interact with things physically. So the cloud needs physical devices to be able to experience the cloud. So the cloud was the new platform. So not take the PC, put it on the side, replace it with a cloud. The cool thing about the cloud is there are a lot of clouds, as you're going to see. So the cloud was our new platform. Now, inside any of these platforms, we could obviously do what we'd done back with the mouse, which is to gain market share. If we innovate well, if you innovate very well, and you're competitive, and you're good, and you're in the right market, you can tend to gain market share. And finally, the coolest thing about this story is that there are lots of clouds. So not only are there lots of products within the cloud, lots of products within it. So let's take music. inside the music space, and I'll define music for you. Music is any device that you listen to or experience music with. Okay, I'll just name a few categories. Bluetooth speakers, Wi-Fi, in-home speakers, car stereos, earphones, headphones. There's lots of devices, okay? So those are all potentially different categories that a company like us could enter. So imagine the PC. We had all those categories we could go into. Now you're in the music space with this cloud of music streaming down on you from somewhere. And now you've got lots of different ways to experience it. So we have lots of new markets within music that we could enter. But it's not just music. So unlike the old era where we had just the PC, we're not constrained only to music. Let's go to the fourth one. This one is going to seem really strange. Gaming. Now, you mentioned that you like our headsets, and gaming most of our business in gaming is PC gaming. So you could say, well, you're back to the PC again. But not really. Because PC gaming has completely changed over the last decade. PC gaming is not really PC gaming. It's cloud-based gaming. What's happening is you're playing with people. If you play League of Legends or Overwatch or any game that's a cloud-based PC game, which is the only games people play anymore, you're basically playing on servers throughout the world. They're updated real time all the time. There can be hundreds of thousands of people on them at the same time, and they're almost free because once you have that much scale operating in that many different places, the cost drops to near zero. So as a result, this is another cloud-based business. So suddenly the old mouse and keyboard and headset business, when you put it in gaming, is a cloud-based business again, and it's growing again. Now, what about these others? Video conferencing. Video conferencing used to be a business where you'd walk into a room, and still is, by the way. You walk into a room, and somewhere in that room that you can't see, there's a PC. It's kind of a big PC, but it's a PC. It's a server. And that server's hidden in the wall, and it's enabling you to communicate point to another room somewhere that has a server that's probably by the same company, and you're able to communicate back and forth visually and very, very effectively using that. Now, that's really changed, too, because of the cloud. So the cloud basically takes that server, puts it up into a series of servers around the world that are shared, super low cost. Now you don't need a PC in the room at all. What do you need? You need a camera. You need a microphone. You need some way of hearing it, so speakers. And so that's our kind of business. So we've entered that business too. So another cloud-based, and that could go on and on. There's so many different opportunities here. So the bottom line is, a company like Logitech, if we're innovative, if we think as a design-led, consumer-centered, customer-centered business, we have an almost unlimited number of opportunities. And I'll stop for a second and just say, let me illustrate how many opportunities we have. This room's a little tricky, but I would say absolutely everything in this room, every single thing in this room, including the walls, the lights, the chairs, you, me, our clothes, will be connected over the next 20 or 30 years. Why? Because the cost of storage, the cost of computing power, the cost of sensors, thanks to companies like Apple, the cost of all that is going to be approaching free, and the cost of cloud storage, so cloud computing. So if the cost is approaching free, then there's not a single product in the world that shouldn't be thought of as including those three or four free ingredients. And most of them will. Now, very few. These chairs do not take advantage of any of those ingredients, and one day they will. So there's an opportunity across an infinite number of categories to reinvent the category now, and that's exactly how we think about it. Now, for us to play in it, and this is pretty downstream thought for most startups, for us to play in these new spaces, we need some advantage. Why Logitech? Can't be just design. Design will get you so far. Well, this is the incredibly fancy way we think about what we are and how we can bring advantage. So we essentially have 5 key capabilities, and we're soon to add a 6th, that we're building all the time. The first one is our operations, which is the old manufacturing plant that I showed you in the beginning, or talked about in the beginning. So we manufacture and we bring those things to market. We're very efficient. We do our own manufacturing. I don't encourage any startup to do that. But in our case, we've been doing it for so long that it's really a big advantage. The second one is design. I've already talked about that. I personally, this is a personal opinion. I wouldn't get into any business without really thinking of it as a design business, because if you don't, somebody else will. And design is basically about rapid iteration and rapid prototyping and continually keeping your user close to you and always, always innovating to improve the experience. When we launched that product I put up there first, 3 months before it was on the market, we already hated it because we knew so many things we could do better and different. And that's the mentality that design gives you. I love it. I don't really hate it. You won't either. The third one's engineering. We're an engineering company. I mean, Logitech really started as an engineering company, will always be an engineering company, but we're a different kind of engineering company. We started as a hardware engineering company, and we're really good at sensors. We're really good at mechanical engineering and electrical engineering and battery management, but we've also had to become much better at software. And now we're starting to get better at machine learning and artificial intelligence. And you've got to keep growing, and we're going to keep growing in this engineering space. Go-to-market is a big problem for startups in hardware. They all, if a great hardware company, a great hardware startup can, I could take 5 people from this room, because this is a room full of smart people. I could take any 4 of you, and the 5 of us could go away for a few months, and we could develop a product in almost any category we could think of, and I'll bet you we could make one that's better, or at least different and more appealing to somebody in the market. And so we could bring it to market. And in the beginning, we could be successful. And we might even get good reviews from TechCrunch and other NZZ. We might even get a good review or 2 in the process, maybe very strong reviews. And then we would launch that product. And then we would, if we launched in the wrong category, we might, kind of poke the dragon, and a big company would decide, wow, that's a good idea. We need to be doing that. And then they'd come out at match, and then we'd have to be on the 2nd generation of product. So we'd be just obsessed with creating a great product. Meanwhile, 3 years later, if we were really successful and we won that battle, we would find ourselves completely in, let's say we started in Silicon Valley, a US-based company. Well, the advantage we have, and the reason why we're still around, and I think we have a promising future, one of the reasons is that we could take a same product, and in 2 weeks, we could launch it in almost every market in the world because we're super global. That's the benefit of being around for a while. The last one is marketing. I'd say it's the thing we're the weakest at. We're not a particularly good marketing company yet. We're still learning that. I spent my career at Procter & Gamble and Brown and Whirlpool and a few other places. And I think we've got a lot to learn, but the good thing is that we don't have to learn the same things that everybody learned before because marketing's changed. I hated marketing up until maybe 5 or 6 years ago because I felt marketing had become sort of claiming things and describing things a little bit more exaggerated than they are. And that disturbed me, so I got rid of my whole marketing function when I came to the company. But over the last few years, I've changed my view of that again. And I think, as long as you're truthful and it's authentic and it's real, marketing can be incredibly powerful. In the past, a company could control their marketing. So when I started my career, you could control what people thought about you because you could describe what brand you were. You then could place your advertising in a magazine or buy advertising on TV or control a message you gave to a journalist. And your message was your message. And I think that was a terrible thing because it wound up creating a war for words and claims and exaggeration. The wonderful thing now is because of social media, because of the ubiquity of communication and how impossible it is to control a customer or a competitor or even somebody who's just interested, everybody can talk about you all the time. So if you don't have authenticity as a brand, you've got nothing, absolutely nothing. You're so fragile, a 5 kilometer an hour wind can blow you away. So that's the kind of marketing I love because it's a torture test. It's real. So those are the 5 things we're really working on. Now, let me talk a little bit about design. I mentioned that when I came to the company, I wanted to be a design company. I wanted us to be a design company. That's not just about beautiful products, as I pointed out. I mean, I hope our products are beautiful. It's really about design thinking, constantly iterating. And this isn't something that, I say it as if, we're the first company that thought about it. We aren't, of course. And as I mentioned, every single person in every job in every company can do it. When we're done, or when I'm done one of these days, unless they throw me out before, we will be designing our accounting, the way we close our books at the end of every quarter, the way we have our meetings, everything. And I don't mean designing so that it's beautiful or perfect. I mean designing so that the user is getting a better and better experience, or so that the experience is moving because the world's moving and the technology available is moving. So design is really what, in my opinion, absolutely central to our success, short and long term. And so we're always trying to figure out how to make our design better. When I came, we didn't have a single designer in the company, not a one. And so I spent my first year doing nothing. I'm not a designer, but and you're not either. Many of you are not either. But you can do design, because design is just sitting there and listening very carefully to customers, internal customers or external customers, and trying to really understand what they want, and then rapidly trying to prototype something, put it together so that you can put it in front of somebody and get feedback. Well, the more sophisticated version of that is to actually have the luxury of your own design team. So after that first year, I found my way to somebody who's now become a friend of mine and a partner. And that partner is, let me go back a slide there. That partner is now the former head of design for Nokia. He and I created some design principles, and now we've built a design team made up of people from Nike and IDEO and Microsoft and other companies that have done a lot with design. And we've put those people around the world. So we now have designers around the world, all kinds of design disciplines I didn't even know existed, like business model design. But we've got industrial design and UI, UX and things. So now we've really got design, and we've got design built out around the world. And I would say we are legitimately becoming, we're not there yet, we're becoming a design company. Now, there are several things that give me confidence that it's working. Okay, this is one of them. You know, design awards are just awards. You know, they're not business results. So you can't over-celebrate awards. But we've won a lot of design awards. We've won over 100 design awards from very prestigious design organizations in the last 3 years. And I think that's more design awards per revenue dollar than any company, I believe, if it's above a certain size. So we've certainly got, from an award standpoint, we're getting some credit. Now, let me go back up here and say, how have the results been financially? Now, you probably can't read this, so I'll put something up in a minute that makes it easier to read. After that first terrible year, that if you're in your first year, even your second year, my second year wasn't very good either. My second year, we grew 2%. So it wasn't exactly an amazing year. You know, if you claim that you're going to be a design or growth company, that's not great. But then the next year was 4%, and the next year was 9%, and the next year, which was last year, was 15%. So by our last year, which is our fiscal year 17, we grew 15%. Well, not bad. We quadrupled our profits. So we went to over $250 million, so from 67. That's not quadrupled for you finance people in the room. That's somewhere between 3x and 4x. Our stock price is now at $35. So our stock price has gone up by, a lot, 500 or 600%. And the cool thing about that is that we're just getting started. We're at the very beginning of what we're going to do. Now, so this captures a little bit of that in a way that you can see from the back of the room. You know, as you see, our growth has gone up, our profit's gone up, and our stock price has gone up. So people have a tendency to look at that and say, "Ooh, you must have joined the right markets, you must have done the right thing," and they're true. But at the end of the day, I believe it's because we're a design company, becoming a design company. If you pulled the companies that I would define as design companies out, and you look at their stock performance over the last decade, companies like Nike, I think you'd see very similar trends. There's not a constant straight line up, but over time, if you look over time, when the rubber meets the road and you look at them relative to their alternatives, they're almost always outgrowing the markets they're in. You can't afford not to be in design. Now, as I said, we're at the very beginning of what we're going to do, so I'm going to come back and talk about startups here at the end, but we're at the very beginning of what we're going to do. Why do I say that? Well, because in that little house with the capabilities in it that I showed, at the top of the house, you might have noticed, I said, multi-brand, multi-category company. So we're going to be a multi-brand, multi-category design company. That's our mission. Everybody's got a different mission. That's our company mission. And that means we have a lot of spaces to go into new things. And so we're going to keep going into new things over time. Now, I'm going to close on just a couple of things. The first one I want to talk about is, and many of you work in big companies, so you'll probably be able to relate to this. I want to talk about working in a big company. And I want to tell you that I spent my career in big companies. I've never worked in a small company until now. And so I'm not an authority on small companies. I am an authority on big companies, though. At least I think I am. And I will tell you, I don't think big companies do very many things well. You know, ironically, we have a tendency to celebrate big company best practices. Why? Well, because they're big. And so we look at the best practices and the good performance, and there are so many good big companies out there, they probably wouldn't be surviving if they weren't good. But those most of those best practices are actually needed because these companies are big. They're big, they're slow, they're bureaucratic, they're over-layered and over-leveled, and therefore they have to do things differently from a good small company. And so which is better? A good small company, every time. A good small, 5 people working together well is better, much, much better than any big company could ever be. So if that's the case, then what do you do? Because it's like a paradox. You know, you're working as a small company, but you're trying to get big. So I mean, let's face it, that's the ultimate mission, is to grow and scale. And you know, if you work in startups long enough, or you hang around startups, the word scale comes up, you know, 10 times a day. You know, they throw out the old founder, or they make them step aside, and they bring in the expert from P&G or Coke or Unilever or somebody, Nestle, and they say, you know, we want you to run the company because you're good at scaling. And so the new person comes in, and they bring in those best practices from the big company. And it often doesn't work. Sometimes it does, but it often doesn't work. Why? Why doesn't it work? I mean, it should work. It doesn't work because those aren't best practices for a small company. And they're not better than being small, being good and small. So it's a paradox. This is one of the tough things I think that people don't talk about much, and I obviously have a very strong opinion about it. Now, I'm not criticizing the successful big companies. There's so many amazing companies in the world today, from Apple to Google to, I mean, you know, how could we possibly not say they're good? Of course they're good. I'm just saying they have a big problem, which is that they're big. And you don't have it if you're a small company. So don't get it. Don't get that disease. Now, how do you avoid the disease? I don't know. I'll admit that I don't know. I think design is part of the answer, but I don't really know. I don't think design and just bring in designers is going to solve that problem. I think we're going to have to redesign the way we think about companies. I think companies are going to have to figure out how to act more like a collection of small companies rather than a big company. Now, that won't work in every industry, won't work for every company. I hope it'll work for us, because we're going to try to do it. But that's really our future. So I will say one last thing to the entrepreneurs in the audience, which is it's hard to be an entrepreneur. You know, it's exciting, but it's hard. And I have, as I said, I'm not one, but I've spent so much time with you, and I love entrepreneurs, and I've learned more from entrepreneurs and good founders in the last several years than I did probably in 20 of the 30 years of my career. And I think it's a tremendous place to learn. What we're trying to do is be a company where entrepreneurs can come for refuge. So if you're an entrepreneur, and here's a common path for an entrepreneur. You start out friends and family money. You might have somehow you got enough money to get started. You've got 2 or 3 people who you love to work with, and you guys are passionate about an idea, and you get it off the ground. And then you get it to a point where you kind of need more money, and so you raise a little more money. This time, you aren't to the point where you're making money yet, but you're getting there. So you raise some money, you bring it in, you give up a little ownership, but you need to because you're going to get bigger. And so you then you're kind of off, and you're moving ahead, and so far so good. Now, this is where the stories diverge. You know, some companies end up in a constant battle to raise money. The founder moves from being, like Ian is a CTO, he probably loves technology and loves what he's doing. I love products, so I don't want to spend all my time raising money. But a lot of founders find themselves every month, every week almost, maybe 50% of their time ends up being the fundraising business. And it's really frustrating because they got into it because they were in love with an idea of bringing something to a user, and they find themselves a financier and a banker. There's some people who love that, but many of them don't. So it is a tough thing. It's a tough story for many people. There's another path, which is, and I'm advocating this path very publicly, make a little, sell a little. Make a little, sell a little. Don't try to scale too fast. The world will push you to scale as fast as humanly possible. Venture capital is built on this. They don't mind if you hit the wall, like insects against a windshield. And a few of you don't, because then they don't invest in you. They invest in the ones that don't. So it's a dog-eat-dog world. But I believe that most startups would be better off if they slow down, they scale more slowly, they try to make a little, sell a little, like the guy who started the pizza place down the street instead of Uber. So that's my closing message. I am not an expert in startups. I do love design. I encourage you, if you're in a startup, you're in a big company, think of yourself as a designer, because one day you should be, and you can be. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we have time for just a few questions.
Perfect.
Just a few questions. Well, before we do, I just want to point out, though, that this is actually the official Digital Festival clicker, and this is actually a Logitech device. So I just wanted to clarify before we go.
Good news.
So who here actually has a Logitech mouse? Okay, good.
Not enough.
Not enough, yeah. So we'll be selling some in the back for those of you who don't have them. No, but I want to open the round to questions. So hold on, can I get the question cube? The blue one, yeah.
Oh, I love these.
Yeah, these are cool too.
We should get in that business too.
You should. But they're a lot. If you make them softer, by the way, because I threw this in the audience yesterday, and it's not as soft as I thought.
Can we just throw it to somebody and they have to ask a question?
That is the strategy I like.
Not bad.
I may be one of the entrepreneurs you have talked to, and I had always this idea that Logitech would be perfect in order to bring Alexa kind of device to the market. And it would be especially fun if we could understand Swiss German, because basically you are guys a Swiss company, even if the CEO is not. So have you any plans for that?
Well, you know, we work on a lot of products we don't talk about, so I won't be talking about products that I'm not talking about. But we're always working on new stuff, and we're super excited. We are working with a lot of the large companies. Like we think of ourselves as a small company, and we think of ourselves as a harmless, capable partner for a lot of the larger companies like Amazon, like Apple, Google. You know, that's really our place in the world, and as you said, there are opportunities everywhere, including in the personal assistant space. So we'll see.
Yeah, perfect.
Other questions?
We have time for another two questions. Yeah, please, in the front. The cube. There you go. Yep. Oh, perfect.
Hi, about branding. Logitech is such a great brand. Why do you use other brands like UE?
Yeah, thank you for saying that about Logitech. Logitech is a great brand. I'm trying to think of an analogy so I can bring this home. I want to think of an analogy without insulting another company. I'll use our company. I'll insult us. So when I first came to Logitech, we have amazing, and I mean amazing technology in Bluetooth speakers and in acoustics and far-field microphones, to your question. So we have great engineering. And so we launched a series of products, like within the first 6 months I was there, just to show you that it wasn't all straight uphill. And they failed miserably. And they were under Logitech UE. They were basically Logitech. Now, was there something wrong with the products? No. Was there something wrong with our go-to-market? No. Did we overprice them? Was there tough competition? There was definitely tough competition. And I'm convinced that the reason that we weren't successful is because we were competing with Bose and Beats. We were competing with brands and companies that grew up authentically thinking about nothing but music product. And consumers know that. You know that. I know that. I know the CEO of Bose. I know that's all they've ever done. So when we brought Logitech in to create a product, and if we had tried to take Logitech into the market, with the risk we have, even though the people who worked on it were 100% music focused. We have an entire building of people who do nothing but design and simulate music products. When we went to market as Logitech, as good as the Logitech brand is in many spaces, people would have said, oh, Logitech's a good brand. I can understand why they'd be stretching into music, but they're not Bose. So what would have happened? We would have been priced below Bose. We would have had half the market share. And the results have been completely different. We're the market leader here in Switzerland with a brand that nobody's ever heard of called Ultimate Ears, because people know, well, maybe that's an authentic music brand, and it is. It was born on stage by performers like Justin Timberlake putting it in their ear, and we took the same acoustic technology, and the music experts inside of the Ultimate Ears business have built products, and one of them is the Bluetooth speaker. So that's why. There are categories where you need a dedicated brand. You can't compete head-to-head if you're not authentically in that category. Not everywhere. So, Martin, we will very stubbornly add brands, and they have to be authentic. It's not just painting a new logo on there. Okay, one more?
Thank you. Yeah, I think we're out of time here, but we do have something for you here. Hold on.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, of course. So, hold on. Here we go. So, we're all about competitor analysis also, right? So we got your Sennheiser headset just to test out to see.
Wow, that's terrific. Thank you.
Competitor, it's very good to get
Great
out
company.
there. And then, obviously, the color to go with that as well. So, that's a great way to carry that discreetly back to the office.
I'll have to hide it because they won't let me in.
Yeah, definitely. That's why we got you the bag. It's like Friday. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Cool.
Well,
thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please,
Thank you.
a round of applause.